Sampson, 1046 LLC. Trading is 8 Drink Listing, 327 Gay Street, Class BV7 beer, wine, and liquor license. Application and transfer location of Class BV7 license located at 1046 West Lombard Street to new location, 327 Gay Street. Application includes a request for live entertainment. Everybody testifying, please step forward and raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes.
Yes.
For the record.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. For the record, Norman J. Kinski, representing the applicant in this case.
All right, thank you very much. And on behalf of protestants, I see a number of folks here. I don't know exactly which side you're on necessarily. You'll.
In opposition?
No, please. Is there one person who might direct traffic for us?
I will do that.
All right, and come on up and state your name.
My name is Marie J. Washington. Do I continue?
You may.
Okay. On behalf of the East Baltimore Community Corporation and the communities that surrounded in the 300 block of Gay Street, Fallsway, Hillen Front, and in High Street, we're here to voice opposition to the transfer of the liquor license that is currently located at 1046 West Lombard Street.
And how many witnesses do you anticipate you'll have testifying today?
I have 5.
All right, great. Right, because this is an application for transfer filed by Mr. Sampson, it's traditional that his side goes first, and then
That's fine.
you will have an opportunity to cross-examine Mr. Sampson or any of his witnesses.
Okay, I have to say first that, to go on the record, that I am not an attorney, so I'm a layperson, and if the board to give me lenience as a layperson.
Granted.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
thank you. Mr. Kadinsky?
Dr. Washington, Chairman, one point of concern that we need for each person to be able to ask and answer during the course of our recording. It's not a conversation. We need for there to be one person speaking at one time, and if you have a concern or a question, that the other person has to wait until the person testifying completes their testimony before they can introduce any new information. We can't have a lot of conversations in the back of the house, if that makes sense.
Okay,
All right,
that's
thank you.
fine.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, Mr.
Mr.
Kadinsky.
Sampson is my first witness. State your name and address for the record, please.
Kevin Sampson, 1014 W Street, Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20001.
Now, you're a current licensee in the city of Baltimore, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been a licensee?
It's 2005.
And you had, the license was located at what address?
1046 West Lombard Street.
And you have a need to move the license for what reason?
Well, wanted to get a larger space that would be more conducive to generate a better business proposition. I wanted to be closer to downtown and wanted to add more of a food concept, and this location fits all of those needs.
Now, you filed this application back in May of this year, is that correct?
Correct.
And at my instruction, you went and met with the various community groups?
Yes, I did.
And who did you meet with?
I met with the Jonestown Planning Council, and that included Joe Cronin as the chair, and Father Lawrence is among the other members there. I've had extensive phone conversations with the other businesses in the area. As you know, there aren't any residences in the immediate area. It's a highly commercial district, so I felt it was important to reach out to all of the businesses. I talked to Mr. Sanket Patel, who owns the Sleep Inn Hotel that's behind. His name escapes me. I talked to the general manager of the Holiday Inn that's located right adjacent. I talked to Mr. And he sent a letter of not opposing, if you will, Kevin Lindemood, who's the CEO of Healthcare for the Homeless, one of the larger employers of the area. Also, I sent letters to MC Vets, Rosalind Booker. I talked to her briefly, but I sent a letter to request a meeting. We did not connect as far as a meeting, but I did reach out to her and talked about the concept. Also, EBCC, I didn't have a proper email, so I did attempt email, but particularly with Dr. Washington, I made extensive efforts to, since it's adjacent, you know, I live in Washington, D.C. I've dropped by a number of mornings before work, dropped off my card, and I've left voicemails with her assistants and herself, and we've changed voicemails. I mean, she has returned a couple of calls, but and I also sent a registered letter in June. So I've made a number of outreaches there with EBCC. In addition, I've also met with Baltimore Planning, obviously extensively in my zoning application to talk about what I was doing, and got their approval. And I also have had a zoning hearing, which requires me to publicly post a sign out front and invite the public to the meeting. And I had no protest, if you will, at that hearing, and that was September 8th, I believe, and that was approved. It's just not, paperwork's not there. In addition, Baltimore BDC, which is to talk about various just development in general in the area, because the way I look at this property is property has probably been vacant for, people tell me 10, 15 years since the owners bought it. It's in disrepair. You know, my plan was to bring some, you know, life to the neighborhood through improving this property and also generating additional revenue for the city. As far as the, you know, out of the 9, you know, all the people I contacted, they were all supportive. And as I explained my concept here, it's another food destination. One of the plans that Jonestown requested that it be open at noon to allow, earlier during the day, to allow for another lunch option. There are very few lunch options in this area. The format, one of Father Lawrence's big concern, he said, don't be as loud as, I think, Sonic or whatever, the music club down the street. That was his major concern. So I think I have gone beyond best efforts to reach out to stakeholders in the area. I've invested, you know, a substantial amount of resources with council as far as with the owner to hold the property for this period of time. I've had to put out my resources to hold the property and not rent it out. And I think, you know, overall that area needs development. It's an old town area that was developed and planned. Nothing's occurred for this period of time. So, you know, I think as far as in talking with council, as far as the codes of Baltimore, I've addressed all those codes. I've addressed research, and it hasn't been a quick period of time. This process started, and now we're in October. So, that's all. Should I add anything else?
Well, the thing is, out of all the people that you talk to, the property itself is zoned M2, is that correct?
Correct.
So it's a heavy zone, it's industrial. You went to the zoning board in September and you secured approval for lot of attainment, as you indicated, without opposition.
Correct. Right.
And you reached out to the Jonestown Planning Council, and you were there on June 5th, 2012, is that correct?
Correct.
We'll submit copies of those minutes, and the one that applies to
Should they have the actual letter too?
It's at the very top, because it has other things about the.
Sure. All right, Jonestown Planning Council General Membership Meeting minutes of June 5th, 2012 are received as the applicant's first exhibit.
And there's a letter from Jonestown Planning Council.
Let me just read this quickly.
There's the actual letter.
All right, letter dated June 15th, 2012 from Joseph M. Cronin, President of the Jonestown Planning Council, to the applicant indicating that the Jonestown Planning Council and the community is not opposed to your concept on the condition that you accomplish additional community outreach and receive input from Dr. Washington and Colonel Williams. That's received as a second exhibit.
How many times did you try to get hold of Dr. Washington?
Collectively, in person, 4 phone calls, more than 10, and registered mail once.
Did you ever get any response?
Well, we did exchange voicemails for a period of time, but we didn't.
Never had a meeting?
Never had a meeting. Yeah.
Okay. And you have letters from other individuals that you contacted or emails?
Yes.
Can you submit those, tell me what they are, and I'll give them to the boards and
This first letter is indication of an email with Mr. Sanket Patel,
so it has
the owner of the Sleep Inn Hotel, which is around the corner, and was very interested in an additional venue in the area to service his clients. I mean, it's guests.
All right.
Three?
Yes, we'll receive the applicant's third exhibit. It is an email from Sanket Patel to Mr. Sampson, dated Thursday, May 31st, 2012, indicating forwarding of an email to an owner and a return email disclosing a phone number and asking them to call and discuss the matter. Applicant's third exhibit is received.
This is a letter from, letter to Ms. Rosalind Booker, is that correct?
Yes.
And you had a conversation with her concerning what you want to do and.
Yeah,
this was
prior, but
confirmed.
we didn't have a meeting wasn't set, but we had a discussion about that. So it's not a meeting that's set out yet.
Okay, letter dated June 30th, 2012, from Mr. Kevin Sampson, the applicant, to Ms. Rosalind Hannibal Booker, Director of Development at the Maryland Center for Veterans Education and Training. It's received as the fourth exhibit on behalf of the applicant.
Next one I'll submit is an email to Mr. Sampson from Mr. Kevin Lindenmuth, President and CEO of Healthcare for the Homeless, which they have no opposition to the plans to open the facility.
I'd have a letter dated, or an email dated Tuesday, September 18th, 2012, from Kevin Lindemood, President and CEO of Healthcare for the Homeless, to Mr. Sampson, the applicant, indicating that there is no opposition to the proposal, saying specifically no opposition to your plans to open a facility on Gay Street offering food and live musical performances. And that's received as the fifth exhibit.
And number 6, this is a copy of your first attempt to get a hold of Miss Maria Washington, is that correct?
That was after a number of attempts in person. That was sent via U.S. mail, a registered letter.
All right, and a copy, unsigned, of a letter from Mr. Sampson to Dr. Marie Washington dated June 30th, 2012, indicating that he is looking for input on her opinion as president of EBCC. It's received as a sixth exhibit.
And that was in June, is that correct?
Yes.
And you said you made numerous attempts thereafter to have some sort of dialogue?
Correct.
Never got,
We got a response with voicemails, and it was phone tag, but never. I put requests for meetings in my emails there, and
you never had a meeting?
no, I never had a meeting. No.
You stopped in the location?
Right, several times.
And when you stopped in, you told them why you were there?
Right. I mean, there's not an office per se. There's a receptionist downstairs, and I either would write notes or leave a card or things of that nature.
All right, and you also, when you filed your application for live entertainment, you met with the zoning and the planning department and outlined your plans, is that correct?
Correct.
And tell the board what your plans are for live entertainment.
Well, the plans for live entertainment is that this would be the nature of the live entertainment. If you want to play any music of any sort, So I want it to be clear there. My target really is for a live music more towards max of a quintet or 3 or 4 musicians, catered more towards a I guess you would say, mature listening crowd. It's not to be a nightclub or things of that nature, but to allow a venue that you could have music from a wide range of places. I mean, I live in, Washington, D.C. Back and forth for business here in Baltimore, but I live near an area called U Street Corridor, which is near Howard University. When I moved there 12 years ago, it was blight. There was one Ben's Chili Bowl, one venue. But now, in music and nightclubs are the ones who are willing to take the risk to come into areas that aren't pretty. And by them bringing people in, people learn about the area. And I've seen this happen in Chicago, Baltimore, numerous cities. So I see this as an opportunity as a business to come in, to take a bit of a risk. If you look around the area, today it's not pretty, but the numbers work that I can have a business, be profitable, to go into the areas where they're already developed. It's a large financial commitment. It's a large risk. I want to be a business that stays in business. So I think with my negotiations with the owner of the property, he wants to do something different, but he's tired. So I think there's a good relationship with the existing owner and what I'm trying to do to be good for the city. One other side note to point out with regard to zoning, it's M2 today, but there's a zoning rezone effort within the city.
Hang on one second, Mr. Sampson.
Yeah.
Why don't you co- Yes, he wants you to use the microphone. He wants to hear what you're saying. All right. Sounds good.
When did it go off?
He's a viewer, so yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sampson, you may continue.
Yeah, the only last point is that, in looking at this, I did a ton of research, engaged a lot of counsel other than mail to find out the right location. And from a zoning perspective, the city has a zoning effort underway that this will become, I think, CM or some other zoning class whereby live entertainment will be a part of it. You won't even need to get conditional use. So in summary, all the stars line up. I think that, this is good for the city with more revenue. It's good taking a blighted property off the market, and it can, help me as a business. So,
Now, let me ask you this question. It's really not a really big place.
no.
1,800 square feet?
Yeah.
And
90
you
by
indicated that you have like 40 to 60 would be the capacity there?
Yeah,
And you're already a licensee, you're already alcohol certified,
right.
and of course you don't have any violations against you from the other location,
No.
and you feel you're a fit and proper person to have the license.
Yes.
Of course, you're a licensee, so you don't have any felonies,
No.
and you haven't committed any false material misrepresentation on your application.
No, sir.
And you reached out to all those people except the ones that didn't call you back.
Right.
No further questions.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sampson, what is your other establishment? What is your establishment here in the city?
Yeah, he's a licensee, 1046.
Lombard, but
That's fine.
Okay, it is 1046 West Lombard. Thank you. All right, any questions, commissioners?
Just one small one. Capacity is about 60 people, you say 40 to 60 people?
yeah, that's,
Now, the liquor license is going to be for the first floor or the entire building?
first floor, the way I draw the plan, there's a little space, like a quarter of it for storage upstairs. The rest of the building is unimproved at this point, and I'm only asking for a little storage space in the second floor.
Would you, in later time, open the entire building up to be used for the vendors?
That's a potential if, profitability and other things come into play. I mean, as a business owner, you would, if you have the opportunity to expand, you would. But
So the possibility is that this one dwelling, this one building could possibly increase in capacity in future time without coming back to us?
no, I have to come back to you if there's any, my understanding, if there's any change in the layout or if I add another floor or do an improvement, I would have to come back to you.
I just want to make it clear, if
Yeah.
you file for use for the entire building and we issue a permit to have a liquor license for the entire building, why would you need to come back to us?
It's only the first floor.
Only at the first
Well,
floor?
the layout that I submitted is only the first floor and a little bit of space for storage upstairs, so there's not a basement.
That's clear, thank you.
I have a few questions. Mr. Sampson, can you give me a better understanding of the neighborhood? Am I correct that there is the juvenile detention center that's there as well as the Chance?
Correct.
Tell me with the Chance, how they operate. What is their operations? Do you know?
Chances, from my understanding, is of Googling and things of that nature. It's like a reintegration place for people with substance abuse. That's my understanding.
Okay. So it's a substance abuse treatment center?
That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you're requesting live entertainment, correct, as well?
Correct.
Did you speak to the type of music, acts specifically?
Largely what prompted me to look at location is there's another location. It's Sonar, I think, or something that's up the street.
Call it Sonic.
Is it Sonic or something? Thinking of food, my focus with the size venue, I can't do, I'm not booking Jay-Z or anybody like that. It's a type of venue where it will be suited more towards a small, 3 to 5 person band when you had it. And obviously it's not going to be live entertainment every day. The other part, when I said other groups, is I see a real opportunity for various international bands, international groups, African, Mexican. The city's become more diverse, and many times these people of these other groups don't have venues to come, and I've seen that very popular in the U Street area. So I guess in summary, it would be a mix of music, of genres.
Can you name some?
Yeah, well, one, R&B, jazz, international, which is broad to include, Ethiopia, West Africa, et cetera. And even solo acts, one guy on an electric keyboard,
Okay. You also, in your communications with, I believe, Jonestown,
Mm-hmm.
you stressed that this is going to be a restaurant. Am I paraphrasing correctly?
I said there would be food, and I actually had a presentation I gave to them.
Did you-
That we're looking at what's called as a moderate food license. That's not the, bar foods. And what I'm doing is I've been exploring other concepts. There are a number of things that you can do under this, like you can do
Right.
barbecue and have a heating, not cook the barbecue there, but have a heating tray. Or so I'm exploring the food concepts, but it would not be a full-on kitchen at this point because I think the profitability is not there. Yeah.
So in your testimony, and that's the interesting part, because in the meeting minutes from Jonestown Planning Council, your statements were that, quote, it will not be a dance club, it will not have a full kitchen. However, your other document said that you want the document from Healthcare for the Homeless, that you spoke to them in regards to providing an eatery for their 400 plus employees.
Right.
So it seems to be
Yeah, I'll clarify that.
Okay.
And like I said, his email, I haven't looked at it closely, but the discussion was the same. Actually, he had the same presentation I had.
Okay.
And our discussion evolved around, well, people need somewhere to eat during the day. You can make big business. And I said, well, I'm open at 4 o'clock. He said, well, open at 12 because there's nothing here. He said, the only option is the little fried place next door. And so he may have interpreted that as an eatery, but if you open at 12 and you have hot dogs or burritos or tacos, then it's something that somebody can eat other than wherever they have to walk to now. So that was the discussion, not a restaurant like Ruby Tuesdays.
Okay.
It's always been a
So
moderate.
not a full-scale restaurant,
Not a full
but
scale. Some food.
like chips?
Well, no,
peanuts,
specifically
sandwiches?
with a moderate license, you can do sandwiches, you can do little fryers, you can do, like I said, you can a number of things like a Subway type of thing you can do with a moderate license. Pretty much everything that doesn't require a kitchen hood, which
Okay.
is a broad, fried foods, pre-cooked foods, other places you bring, and sort of like a heating tray. And I haven't explored all the options, but bottom line, it's a moderate food license, the middle one, not just chips. Yeah.
Okay. All right, nothing further. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sampson. Any other questions for Mr. Sampson, Mr. Kaninsky?
And that would be our case in chief subject to rebuttal.
All right, at this time, let me ask Dr. Washington if she has any questions for the applicant, Mr. Sampson. You'll stay right here at that mic. And thank you, Dr. Washington. Any questions for Mr. Sampson, the applicant?
Mr. Sampson, is it not true that you spoke to me on 2 occasions? 1, to introduce yourself. 2, to contact me to say that the meeting that was set up for the community meeting with us, that you were out of town and unable to attend?
A community meeting, I don't recall which community meeting.
This community meeting that I was setting up that you requested, Bridget Tucker set the date up with you. You then called and left a message on my voicemail, which I retained, that said that you were out of town and unable to attend.
I don't recall the date of that meeting. I mean, I don't recall.
Do you
a
recall
community
the
meeting.
conversation?
No, I don't recall it. I mean, I've left, it's very rare that I've talked to anybody live at your organization. So, and I've requested, so I don't know when was the date of that community meeting that you planned?
The date of the community meeting was in July.
Okay. No, I don't recall that, but I've left messages since then.
Do you recall speaking to me?
I recall speaking to your assistant, but I don't recall. One of your assistants, I think she's extension 130, but I don't recall speaking to you.
I'd like for the record to go on the
I'm
record.
going to check at this point. Is there questions or questions?
Mr. Kaninsky is objecting because this is only a time to ask questions. You will have a chance to testify.
Let me ask one
about
other
your-
question.
Okay.
You stated earlier that you went downstairs to speak to a secretary and
No.
coming into the building? That was your statement earlier.
Not a secretary, whoever is the first person, the guard, or whoever's at the front desk.
You're saying that there was no one there?
No, I'm saying when I've dropped by, there's a person, I don't know what you call her, but she sits at the front desk, and I've said, is Dr. Washington here? No, I'll leave a card. So I don't know what her title is, but that is the person at the front desk. And I've made numerous visits there. I've left my card there. Have you received any of my cards?
I received your card and returned your call.
Right. But I've
All right.
made more. Okay.
Next question,
Yeah,
Dr.
okay.
Washington.
Did you indicate to the Director of Healthcare for the Homeless that this was going to be a restaurant?
No.
Did you indicate to the Maryland Veterans Center that this was going to be a restaurant?
No. It wasn't a restaurant. I mean, I've had a presentation with Jonestown. It was very explicit. I have a presentation. So if one would interpret, because there's food there, I mean, obviously I said I had live entertainment, so I haven't misrepresented anything.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Washington. Anything else? Any other witnesses, Mr. Kaninsky? Any other
Not
evidence?
this time, subject to rebuttal.
Certainly. All right, at this time, we'll go ahead and ask Dr. Washington to return
Okay.
and tell us who your first witness will be.
Okay, but first I'd like to give some clarity to the area.
Well, that's fine. You're a witness, and you can begin
I will begin.
at this time. Go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to bring to the attention of the board that the area that's located between Fallsway, High, Low, Front Street, and Hillen constitute a collection of numerous providers of human services. Several years ago, this area was designated as a human service hub. The other thing that I'd like to point out is that this area is not located in Jonestown. This area is located in Old Town. When the zoning hearing was held, we did not receive notification that a zoning hearing was going to take place at that time period, and we didn't get the date. We have since indicated to planning and the officials at planning that's connected to zoning our displeasure with not receiving the former notification. Old Town area is headed up by Lee Douglas. Any communications with that in terms of locating in the Old Town area is directed to Lee Douglas. Within that 200 and 300 block, we formed the historic Old Town Business District, and we did not receive notification. I did receive several calls from Mr. Sampson. I returned 2 of those calls. On the first call, he indicated that he wanted to locate a restaurant with live entertainment. And I asked him if it was a liquor store operation or a bar, and he said no. I said, okay, if you're going to have rezoning done, then I will automatically receive notification. That didn't take place, and that was an error on the city part. The other thing is that he continued to say that he needed to have a meeting with us. And I said, okay, Bridget, set the meeting up. Bridget Tucker, who is my administrative assistant, set up the meeting with Mr. Sampson. Mr. Sampson called, left a message with me on my voicemail, and indicated that he was out of town, and the date went past him, and that he would get back with me on setting up another date. I said, fine. I did not hear anything else from Mr. Sampson after that. The next point I'd like to indicate is that within those blocks exists, one, the Veterans Center, and it is a human service provider for returning veterans that are suffering from substance, alcohol, and mental health. And that is immediately in the next block. 3 buildings before you get to 327 at 301 North Gay Street, the Chance Center, which is my operation. And in that building, it is a one-stop shop center. There is a comprehensive substance treatment program that addresses substance and alcohol addiction. Also located in that building is parole and probation. The Department of Social Service is located at 313, which is still another part of that building. And it's open 24/7, and it provides services to young people who are battered and abused. And that facility is open every day, 7 days a week, 24 hours. In the next block, in the 200 block, there is a recovery program that is set up to work with mothers who are recovering from substance and alcohol to reunite them with their children. And that program is open 5 days a week. The Department of Juvenile Services, which is located in the 300 block, immediately across the street, is open 24/7, 7 days a week. And it provides services to at-risk young people. And young people that are at risk and their families come there on a 24-hour basis, 7 days a week. In addition to that, we also have health care for the homeless. And as many of you are aware, these are individuals that not only have substance and alcohol issues, but mental health issues. And those are individuals that float throughout that community. And as you can see, we have numerous service providers. In addition to that, we have 2 hotels that's located there. One is the Holiday Inn, and one is the Sleep Inn, which is Mr. Patel. Mr. Patel was under the impression that there was going to be a full restaurant that's going to be located at 327, until he went to the location and saw the sign that said the transfer of a tavern to that location. And that changed his views. And you will see that he did send in a letter on their stationery opposing the placement of this transfer of this license to 327. along with the I think there is a letter for the Holiday Inn. The Department of Juvenile Services has expressed its opposition to this because it would place in danger those young people and families that come there. It is my understanding that when a license is being looked at for an area, that it does not have a negative impact on the health, the safety, and the welfare of that community. This particular operation will have a negative impact. It will have a negative impact on those individuals that come to that area 24/7. I'd like to point out that the McVet Center is a residential center. So those individuals are residing in that community 24/7. And we think that this will provide a tremendous interruption, not only to the peace and well-being of this community, but it would provide a negative impact on sustaining, the individual sustaining their substance-free or alcohol-free lifestyle.
All right, Dr. Washington, at this time, I'm going to ask you if it is your intention to ask us to enter into evidence as protestant's first exhibit, October 25th, 2012 letter from Councilman Carl Stokes.
Yes.
I'm going to object to that. I'm going to
Basis?
object to anything that's been
Basis.
submitted today. I checked this file day after day, and I don't like to get sandbagged at the last minute. When this gentleman's reached out to everybody, and not one of those people went to get in touch with him, and you get these letters that come in here the day of the event. And I guarantee you that if I asked every one of them if they ever met this gentleman, ever talked to him, they won't. They're writing that letter on behalf of somebody else. They have no knowledge of what this is about. And to come in the last minute, and to submit it on the day of the hearing, I think is entirely disingenuous, and it's not in your file when I go down there and check.
All right, commissioners, any thoughts or questions on the objection?
We accept, this is administrative hearing, we will accept hearsay.
Then Commissioner, anytime I have another hearing and I'll bring in 300 letters, I'm going to take them one at a time. A, B, I'll go through the alphabet 5 times. If that's what you want, I'll go ahead and do it that way.
That wasn't my
Because-
request. I'm
No,
stating that it's administrative
I'm
hearing.
just saying administrative hearing, I can go ahead and do that also.
Yes, you can.
And have everybody that comes in to testify, let them testify.
All right. Mr. Kaninsky, we are going to overrule your objection to protestant's first exhibit. We don't see any prejudice to your client for it coming in. It's dated today. The letter further indicates from Councilman Stokes that his office have received phone calls from agencies in the neighborhood who think that the entertainment venue would lend further to social concerns, and that a bar and restaurant near the juvenile detention center may be proved to have hazardous and not a viable capital investment to the community. So he apparently has some knowledge, personal knowledge.
Once again, there's no basis for his premises, don't have a logical conclusion.
All right, thank
All
you
right, that's-
for your objection, and we'll keep it for the record. Second exhibit, letter from Council President Bernard C. Jack Young opposing.
We do have Mr. William Driscoll here.
Hang on, no, I'm asking you a question
Okay.
now, Dr. Washington. You want to move into evidence the letter from City Council President Bernard C. Jack Young?
Yes.
It's dated October 25th, indicating the opposition to the transfer. Over your objection, which is noted for the record, we have a letter dated October 25th to the Liquor Board from you, Dr. Washington, as president of the East Baltimore Community Corporation.
Same objection.
Even though the author of the letter is here, you still
Well, I
object?
can cross-examine the author, I can't cross-examine the letter.
Well, right, but it provides you fodder to do some cross-examination. Obviously, that one is admitted into evidence. The declarant is present and able to take cross-examination shortly. So, fourth letter is signed by Delmas Wood, Executive Director for Baltimore City, Maryland Department of Juvenile Services, dated October 25th, and written to the commissioners of the board expressing opposition to the approval of a license transfer, indicating that the proposed establishment is set to be located across the street from the Baltimore City Juvenile Justice Center, a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation, and that the proposed services and alcohol consumption that would occur at this establishment would be detrimental to a community that is already at risk. And that's, same objection. We're going to overrule your objection and receive protestants for. We are asking if you want to have the letter from Sankat Patel, the president of Front Street Development LLC, Sleep Inn and Suites, letter dated October 23rd.
Yes.
Okay, is there an objection? It was written on October 23rd. Still the same objection?
October 23rd was Monday,
Right.
Tuesday.
Okay, your objection's overruled and noted. Applicant 6, or I'm sorry, a 6th exhibit here is a letter from the Maryland Center for Veterans Education and Training Incorporated, dated October 12th, 2012, signed by Lieutenant David T. Clements, Executive Director. Is this a letter that you would like entered
Yes.
into evidence?
Yes, I would.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, no objection on protestant 6. It has received the letter from the Maryland Center for Veterans Education and Training Incorporated. Are there any other exhibits that you would like the board to consider?
There are no other exhibits. I do have with me Olivia Farrell, who is the Deputy Mayor of Human Services for Baltimore City, who will give testimony in opposition to the placement or the transfer of the license from 1047 Lombard to 327 North Gay Street.
All right, we'll be happy to hear from her as soon as Mr. Kadensky asks you a few questions about your testimony.
That's fine.
Thank you, Doctor.
And Doctor, did you get this letter about June 30th from, I'll show you, from Mr. Sampson?
And Mr. Kadensky, excuse me, is that a copy of what's been received as the applicant's 6th exhibit, June 30th letter?
Yes,
Okay.
That has his email, his phone number.
yes.
Do you have any correspondence with him at all?
I had a phone call with him twice,
Correspondence?
no written
No emails?
correspondence. No.
All right, and the area that he is asking the license to be located is a M2 area?
Yes, it is,
So you're from-
currently,
Yeah, well, it's M2.
currently.
Well, I mean, can we go back
It-
100 years? It would be something else, wouldn't it? It could be
Currently,
some- yeah.
it's a M2,
And M2 is industrial.
yes.
There's only one grade higher than that, M3.
Is that a question?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay. And your statements that his place would have a negative impact is based on what?
Mr. Kadensky, come closer to the mic. I'm trying to, we're all going to have to get used to this, but we're probably, in fact, I think at the break might even
Why don't they
take
give you the ones
some
you can
extra
wear? I mean,
mics.
what's the point here?
All right. Everybody can hear you now.
What are you
Yep.
basing the fact that it would have a negative impact on?
It would have a negative impact because individuals that are in recovery, of both substance and alcohol, have a tendency to slip. And when they are exposed to this on an ongoing basis, it presents problems. The most important element for us in opposing it is the young people. There are over 7,000 families, members of families that come into that area on a weekly basis. And we think that the operation of a tavern, bar, and that is what the transfer is for, would be a negative impact on young people and families coming into that area.
How old when you say young people, what do you mean by young people?
As young as 7.
So you think he could serve a 7-year-old?
I said as young as
Yeah.
7. I
And-
did not say that that was the average age.
But you know you have to be over 21 to drink.
Yes. And
And-
we also know that individuals find a way to get in bars and taverns that are younger than that and
But
are
not in this
able to
one.
drink. That I don't know.
Perfect. And along with that, are there any other alcohol establishments within 3 or 4 blocks of this place?
Not within the 2 blocks.
Yeah, but
There-
how about within 3 or 4 blocks?
Well, no, on the other side of the viaduct, which is a distinctly different area, there are it's a cluster of clubs, but that's not in our immediate community.
Because you made it ours 2 blocks. You're saying 2 blocks is yours.
No, I
How
didn't
about
say
4
that.
blocks? No?
Well, Well, I don't understand your question.
I'm saying within 4 blocks, you said there's a cluster of other alcoholic establishments.
No, within a cluster of the 4 blocks, there is not another alcohol bar establishment. And that the area that I'm referencing is Gay Street, Hillen, Falls Way, Low, and High Street.
All right, and none of the hotels have alcoholic beverage licenses?
Not to my understanding.
Okay. And how long has your group been in that area?
We've been in that area over 20 years.
Were there ever any alcoholic beverage establishments from Falls Way going up towards Orleans Street?
Prior to us relocating, there were.
Semino's was there?
I have no idea.
All right. And there's no restriction in the M2 area for a tavern to be?
Is that a question to
Yes.
me? That I know of, I have no idea. You would have to consult zoning
And
on
if the
that.
zoning approved it, and they approved the live entertainment, then zoning would have ruled on it?
Is that a question?
Yes.
Zoning does what it is supposed to do,
And
and
they-
it has its authority. However, we were not given the date of that zoning hearing, or we would have been there.
All right. And you're supposed to be given the date of every zoning hearing?
All community organizations, and we are an umbrella organization listed under planning, are given notification for any zoning change that occur in their immediate area
How are you given that notification?
through mail.
You don't get it in your email?
I receive it normally through mail.
Do you receive a docket? A zoning docket?
No,
Of
they
hearings?
normally send me through mail a notification of those zoning items that are coming up in the boundaries that our organization cover.
Other further questions?
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Washington. Who you'd like to call?
Chairman, I have a question for Dr. Washington.
Sir, I'm sorry, Dr. Washington. We have a question.
I have a few questions. You know, one of our factors is that we must determine the public need and desire for the license. And in your testimony, you stated that there would be several consumers with co-occurring disorders, no or low income, and experiencing trauma. Is it your testimony that they would have no need and desire for this license, or no need?
No need.
Okay. Can you testify this because you are a consumer, or you're here as a representative of that population?
I'm here as a representative of the population.
Okay. How do you determine, or how do you ensure that this isn't a step that one may consider as being paternalistic? The question, I'll rephrase.
Okay.
You don't appear to be a consumer, and we must determine the need and desire for that license. No one has given us from that population testimony that they don't have a need and desire. You're here in a position of an executive that facilitates these human services components.
That's correct.
So I just want to make sure that any decision the board renders is not paternalistic, that we're not making a decision for a population haven't received any information from the targeted population. They aren't here. You're here representing them.
If, we could have quite easily brought individuals that are receiving services here so that you could hear testimony from them.
In your experience, and we can, as I told Mr. Kadinsky, we can take hearsay. In your experience, have you gotten testimony from any of your consumers who have testified that it's hard for them to walk past a liquor store in their neighborhood? Any testimony that you can give us regarding?
Yes, we have written testimony and we have live, and we used the written testimony as part of our sustainability answer to any of our funding agencies.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I follow up on that?
You may.
So, and you're not saying that everybody walks by a bar or a liquor store has a problem with alcohol?
No,
100 people walk by, there may be 2 or 3 that have a problem with alcohol, maybe. But not every person that walks by has a problem with alcohol.
not to my
Okay.
understanding, no.
That
So-
wasn't my statement either. I was specifically
No, but I'm
referring to people
asking
with
her.
substance abuse.
Yeah,
It was a follow-up to
substance,
mine.
yeah.
Okay.
So when you're saying that, there are people that have problems with substance abuse who don't relapse.
That's correct.
Okay.
And there are, if you look at the case history of substance services, you'll find that there is the tendency to relapse, and it's based on exposure and those things that are readily at hand. And that's why the placement of a bar or tavern in that location would be a disadvantage and a detriment to the population.
Isn't that a function of choice?
Everything is a function of
Correct.
choice, but the choice is whether you're making the choice independent without having something that is driving you in that direction.
But originally, you didn't have that driving you. You made that choice to let it drive you.
I don't know if that's a question to
No,
me.
I'm asking you, is that true or not? When you're 10 years old, you don't have a drive to drink
I
alcohol?
can't
can't.
answer that question.
So there comes a time when a certain segment of the population has a problem with whatever substance, whether it be illegal drugs or alcohol.
Yeah, I can't answer the question that it's a 10-year-old, but I can say that we do have young people that are 10 years old that have issues with substance and alcohol. We understand that that's a problem. We see that problem in our schools on a day-to-day basis. It's something that we are working very vigorously to provide preventive services against and treatment and coping skills.
And you have that problem now?
I don't have that
No,
problem.
no, I'm saying those people have that problem now.
That problem exists.
Yeah, and
I
it'll
can't-
exist tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and he's not even open, correct?
That's correct.
All right, no further questions.
Dr. Washington,
It would be an add-on.
All right, yes, Dr. Washington, I assume your testimony is complete at this
Yes.
time? All right, in the interest of time, you have 10 other cases we have to hear this afternoon.
I would just like to call at least
I see.
3 of those.
And tell me who they are and how long you anticipate their testimony
Okay.
being.
2 minutes, Olivia Farrell of the mayor's office.
All right, no problem. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for.
Would you raise your right hand? I don't know that you were
I
here.
was here at the beginning.
You were
Yes, I
sworn. All right,
was. I
thank
was
you very
sworn.
much.
Olivia Farrow, Director of the Mayor's Office of Human Services. One of my programs is the Homeless Services Program. I have my Homeless Services Director, Kate Burdell, here with me today. We just wanted to voice our opposition in that not only Marie Washington has well articulated the immediate area, but just 4 blocks down, we have the city-operated homeless shelter at 620 Falls Way. Across from that is the Catholic Charities Our Daily Bread facility. Both facilities have programs for persons with substance abuse treatment, addictions. And so we know at our facility we have 275 persons who are housed there overnight. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week facility. We just are very concerned about the impact. We know that during the day, many of these residents at our facility, at our Daily Bread facility, are in the area. Many of them are not working. They are on Gay Street, Falls Way, and we're just trying to work with these particular clients in helping to sustain and maintain and gain self-sufficiency and work on their addiction. So that's all I wanted to say. Dr. Washington has articulated the neighborhood and our concerns very well.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kadinsky.
How did you know about this hearing today?
I was in a meeting with the folks from McVets about a week and a half ago.
So prior to that, you didn't have any notice of any of the publications that were published, or there was?
I didn't have any immediate notice.
Now, you mentioned these other places, the Catholic Charities of Daily Bread and the homeless. They located right where there was a liquor license.
That's correct. Scores
Okay.
is right across
And it
the
was there
street.
before, was another place there was before Scores for many years. And they located, Atlantis was there at that time. So they took those people and put them right next to where Scores is. Correct?
I believe the city has, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. No further questions.
All right, thank you, Director Farrow. Any other witnesses? Dr. Washington.
I'd like to call Dr. Pierce from the Maryland Veterans Center, followed by William Driscoll from the Office of the President City Council.
All right, thank you very much. Doctor?
I'm Dr. Jack Pierce with the Maryland Center for Veterans Education and Training. It's mentioned that in a letter that Mr. Sampson said he received from Jonestown, that he contacted us along with Chance. We did get a letter from Mr. Sampson indicating his desire to have a liquor license. The letter didn't say that, but it was an attachment saying that the license will be transferred from an existing location to Gay Street. And Colonel Williams was then the executive director. He's no longer there. That's why I'm appearing. He was in opposition to it. A few years ago, there was an attempt to operate a liquor store right on that corner of Gay and High Street, and we were opposed to that. With Father Lawrence over at St. Vincent, we got together and somehow blocked that. That never came to fruition. Then we look up, and here is a request to transfer a liquor license to that same area, right across.
Was there was a nightclub up on the corner of Gay and Marine Street, as well as several other ones. You have Scores Nightclub, we call it nightclub, right down the street here. I think that it's like anything else, that there are people that have various afflictions. But the question is, there's no evidence here that whatever he would do with this location would have anything to do with it. It's all supposition that you're making. You know, just because you drink a beer today doesn't mean you're going to drink a beer tomorrow. Doesn't make us you're going to walk down his place have a beer. He went out of his. What I really don't like is when these last minute, nobody makes attempts to get a hold of Mr. Sampson to say, what are you doing? He goes around, tries to get people involved. In the last minute, all these letters come in, the 20th, they knew from June, nobody ever reaches out to the licensee. He reaches out. And I think it's very disingenuous to go ahead and do things like that. But you're going to make the decision one way or the other. If alcohol causes these problems, then do away with all of it. See what happens when that happens. Make the deal, get rid of all licenses. Get rid of all drugs. What do you think fat chance that's going to happen on it? You know, you have nobody here from a community person that came. I think it was a point well made. Where is somebody here from the community that's going to come here and explain this situation? You have people here that are doing self-serving statements about their different groups in the case. You got Department of Juvenile Services. Well, they're juvenile. They put it there for a reason because we have some bad people. Next to Scores, there's a prison next to Scores. Or across the streets of Deli Bread. Then you have the homeless. Well, do you think that Scores does anything to make that any worse in that area? They moved there. They weren't there when Scores was there. They moved there. The same thing with here. You have an area. You have a gentleman who has a plan. He seems to have, it's not a big place. It's not going to be, a Hammerjacks or a Sonar. And I think that he reached out to the people he was told to. He made his presentation. He never said it was going to be a restaurant. You read them. He says dining establishment. Restaurants and dining establishments are different. And I think everybody wants to jump on him for that. I think he made his point, and I think he's viewed that opportunity. Now, if he doesn't operate the place properly, do you think any of these people that would be here wouldn't jump on him with 10 feet? 2 feet, really. Well, there's 5 of them at 10 feet. But they'd be right back here. So if you just say just because it's an alcoholic establishment, it's going to be bad, then you will never grant out of the license anywhere. So I think that's a false argument, and I ask the board to approve this transfer.
All right, thank you. Dr. Washington, anything else you'd like to say?
Yes. I'd like to bring to the attention of the board that one of the things in governing an application of issuing a license, that you have to look at the impact on the general health, safety, and welfare of the community in issuing that. And in this instance, the residents of that community are not like any typical neighborhood. They are the residents of the juvenile justice system, are young people who reside in that facility. They are the adults who are in treatment, recovering from alcohol and substance abuse, that are residing in the facility of the Maryland Veterans Center. They are individuals that come into that area that are residing in the shelter that is seeking assistance, not only for substance and alcohol, but mental health. We have outpatient programs that have individuals that come into the area on an 18-hour basis that are seeking services for recovery. Their recovery will be placed at risk in the placement of this facility at 327 North Gay Street. if Mr. Sampson has such a viable concept and idea, why don't he retain his operation on West Lombard Street so that he can move forward in doing the activity that he wants? In this area, we have been in residence in this area for over 20 years. It has been redeveloped as a human service hub. The other residents that come to this area are the individuals that stay at the hotels. And one of the major issues for them is safety and well-being. And they are our temporary residents. And that particular operation is in opposition to this relocation of this license. I would say that we are a community in solidarity against the transfer of a license from West Lombard to 327 North Gay Street. And also, this is Old Town. It has been Old Town for the last 60, 70 years. It has not changed. It has never been a part of Jonestown.
All right, thank you very much. Last word, if you want it.
Yeah, I think all these are just suppositions. There's no factual basis behind it. Because if you think that was true, how does Sonar, that if you put 1,000 people in with young people, they're young people that are Sonar, that is a block away? How do you rationalize that? I mean, there's a place that's going to be 10 times this place here. And you say, well, why isn't that as evil as everything else? They actually have the evil empire go there. You know, you see the people wrestling around in black and all. They don't bother anybody. They've been there for 20, 30 years. There's no impact that people come down the street, you know, to go to Sonar to drink because they're within a block or block and a half. So I don't think any of that argument holds any water.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to go off the record. All right, let's go on the record in the decision phase. Kevin Sampson, 1046 LLC, trade is Eat, Drink, Listen, 327 Gay Street. This is October 25th, 2012. We have heard from the applicant today with counsel. They submitted several documents, including a notice of or meeting minutes from the Jonestown Planning Council, a letter of non-opposition of the project with some kind of, with condition that additional community outreach be performed. We received a letter from Mr. Sampson, the applicant, to Ms. Rosalind Hannibal Booker from Maryland Center for Veterans Education and Training Center, a letter from the applicant to Dr. Marie Washington, president of the East Baltimore Community Corporation, and emails, an email to the president and CEO of Healthcare for the Homeless and the CEO or owner of the Sleep Inn. Board heard from Mr. Sampson. Mr. Sampson indicates he'd like to revitalize the neighborhood and that capital investment is one way to do it. He did make some, obviously, made some phone calls, wrote some letters, and attempted to participate meaningfully in outreach. I'll note that most of these requests most of this work was done in the summertime when a lot of groups aren't necessarily available to meet as they might be during the rest of the year. Nevertheless, he did meet with the Jonestown Planning Council. He did make some attempts to speak to the community, and for whatever reason, he was unable to connect with some of them. There appears to be some confusion as to what Mr. Sampson believed his project was going to entail versus what others believe it's going to entail. We heard from Director Farrow of the Mayor's Health Office talking again about the homeless shelter, Catholic Charities, and other affected organizations that they believe would be harmed, that there would be a health risk there if there was an additional licensee so close to their facilities. We heard from Dr. Jack Pierce of the Maryland Center for Veterans Education and Training Incorporated. He originally believed that there would be a restaurant, that it would be about food and all the employees of these agencies would love to have an extra place to eat, but that he believed that it became more apparent to him that with the live entertainment and everything else, that this was planning to be a nightclub or a bar. And for that reason, he believed that that would be injurious to the residents or the patients of his facility. We also heard from Mr. Driscoll of the Office of the Council President, and we received the letter from the Council President, who believes that a BD7 license with live entertainment in the specific area would unnecessarily harm those individuals seeking treatment for addiction and underserved and at-risk populations working diligently to make life better for themselves. Additionally, Councilman Carl Stokes, in the exhibit, as the first exhibit by the protestants, believes that their community leaders there have expressed their disinterest in this entrepreneurial endeavor. And again, having a restaurant and bar with live entertainment near the juvenile detention center may prove to be hazardous and not a viable capital investment to the community. I won't read all of these letters into evidence, but I think it's clear from the weight of the evidence we have to consider several factors under Article 2B, Section 10202A. The first factor is the public need and desire for the license. Now, public is subject to interpretation, like any other word is. In a situation where we don't have a standard residential population, we don't have neat rows of row houses lined up so we know exactly who the neighbors are, then our scope broadens. And the public, in fact, can be the residents of facilities. The public can, in fact, be employees of the facilities. In this case, we don't have a problem determining by a preponderance of the evidence that there is not a public need and desire when we are receiving correspondence of almost universal opposition by groups like the one led by Dr. Washington, the East Baltimore Community Corporation, by Councilman Carl Stokes, who represents the residents of the district and indicates he receives phone calls from the neighborhood, from the Maryland Center for Veterans Education and Training, from our council president, who obviously does outreach, from testimony from the mayor's office. This is obviously something that it's the wrong place, it's the wrong fit. We're also asked to consider other factors, including the impact on the general health, safety, and welfare of the community. And that includes issues about crime, traffic, parking, or convenience. I don't think that crime, traffic, parking, and convenience are at the top of our list here. We're able to concern ourselves with other necessary factors. While there could be some crime that could result as a result of, that could be argued as a result of the license, I think the operative word here is general health of the community. And the general health, the board believes, of this neighborhood is relatively fragile because there are so many at-risk persons who are there to seek treatment and not to further injure themselves. Based on that, we do find under 10202A that there is not a public need and desire for this license. There is no impact on existing licensees. There is a potential uniqueness of services to be offered, but that is outweighed by the public need and desire for the license, and what we believe will be a significant impact on the general health, safety, and welfare of this community. Consequently, we'll go ahead and deny the request for transfer. Thank you very much. We're off the record.
Thank you.